yesterday. And we're going to start from 0 and we're going to work our way up, okay? Sometimes we have moments where we say, Eric, where should I spend my time to pass my courses? Because there's a lot of things you can do. There's chapter quizzes, mock exams, bootcamp videos, need-to-know videos, study notes, textbook. There's all these options, Math Hub. I could keep going. Where should I spend my time to get the best bang for your buck out of it? Okay? As you can see, a good chunk of this is the black section, and that's the HLQB Bootcamp, which I have offered on some weekends, and these crash courses during the week. Okay? I would recommend if any of these you can make, you should make. And that does not mean if you miss one day, you're behind and you can't come back. Of course you can. Everyday topic is different. As you see, we're repeating it now than we were about 2.5 weeks ago. So every 2.5 weeks it repeats. Okay? So say you can only make Thursdays. You should come every Thursday if you can. If you can make more than that, awesome. Outside of that, I think watching the need-to-know videos and study notes would probably be your best way to study. Okay? Now that depends on you studying through the study notes, which is a summarized version of textbook, right? Study notes is a point form version of the textbook, so study notes may be where we should read if we want to read. And the need-to-know videos are short 5 to 15-minute videos from someone from Oliver's teaching you on certain topics. Similar to what I teach, but a little bit different, right? The gentleman, Sam Albanese, super nice guy, super knowledgeable guy, super boring guy. Love him to bits, but he can be a little bit dry, which I've had sometimes people say the same thing to me. But that's where you would study to learn more. Then the other side of it would be mock exams and chapter quizzes. Now, I want to make this really clear because I've actually gotten a couple of reports from a couple of your hierarchies. Okay, so what that means is some of your field trainers or your brokers, I've gotten reports from them on who's passed what certs and that type of thing. And there's one thing I noticed. There's some people that take a lot of mock exams over and over and over and over and over. And that's not a bad thing per se. And often, if I'm being honest, sometimes you get told to do that, right? Which is fine. I'm not saying what your field trainer is saying is wrong per se, but I would say that back when they got licensed, that worked for them. And I'm not saying that it works for everybody, but it works for some people. Those of us who we take mock exams over and over and we just don't seem to get any better, or we don't seem to do better on our certifications, I would tell you to pivot to chapter quizzes. Okay? And let me explain why. Mock exams are like a general, how are you doing on everything? And you get a mark, let's say 50, 60%. You're going to know that you know 50 to 60% of that module. But sometimes it's really hard to figure out where I know something, where I don't know something. Okay? And in the general, it's like, I got to study everything because I got a 50. Whereas in the need-to-know, or not the need-to-know videos, in the chapter quizzes, they go through the module in different chunks. They go chapter 1, and then they have a test. Chapter 2, they have a test. Chapter 3, they have a test. Okay? And what will happen is those are 10-question tests, not 20 to 30-question tests like mock exams. So they're shorter, easier to digest. And what will happen is some chapters, they're going to be really good, and you're going to do really good on them, and some you're going to do not so good on. So you get 60, 70, 80, perfect. You get 30, 40, 50. Well, that's probably where you need to study, on chapter 2 in the example. And chapter 2 in the chapter quizzes is the same chapter 2 in the need-to-know videos. It's the same chapter 2 in the study notes. It's the same chapter 2 in everything. So often when we're struggling with learning what to do, where to study, the chapter quizzes will give you that direction on how to improve. Especially if we feel like we're taking the same test over and over and over and I don't know what to do. Chapter quizzes. Find out where you're maybe not so good at. Focus on those chapters, bring them up. Then you continue on. Does this make sense? We okay? Perfect. We already talked about the schedule once already. This is me just showing the schedule again because I was going to bring it up. Things repeat. So don't get too worried. This Zoom code is going to be the same for November. Okay? And if you ask your field trainers, SMDs, sometimes they even have a clickable version of this form in a PDF where you can just click the link and go there. But this is not that version. Okay? Moving forward from the schedule. Hopefully everyone kind of looked at that, got that down. Here's my studying process, or at least what I think should be the way to go through this course. Okay? Study is the first step. I know. Life-changing concept. You should probably study to pass a test. Yes. And now that studying means doing the Need to Know videos by yourself, doing those study notes, or coming to these crash courses. I said this yesterday, and I just want to make sure everyone's pretty clear. I've had someone where I sat with them a couple of days in a row on a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and they passed all their exams. They basically met me on Monday, passed the exam we talked about, met with me on Tuesday, passed the exam they did that day, met with me Wednesday, passed their third one there, and the last one was ethics they just did on their own. And that's not saying that I'm the be-all, end-all, and it's amazing, and I teach everything that you need to know. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm teaching you enough to equip you to get that mark. Right? Yesterday, we went through the life insurance mock exam, and that was probably one of the harder of the mock exams, but we did about 15 questions as a group, and then I guessed A on every single question other than what we finished, and we still got a 70% on our mock, for those of us that weren't there. So that's not that we're going through and making sure that we get every single answer right. That's not the truth. But I want you to focus on the questions that you can get right first, and then go to the ones that you struggle with second and guess on them if you have to. Andrew's asking which one's the easiest. Ethics is the easiest, and you should complete that first, if I'm telling you that, Andrew. I'll mention this too, since I'm going to talk about this process. You should be doing ethics first. I'd say accident, sickness second, segregated funds third, and leave life insurance to last. Now, I know why Andrew said I want to leave ethics to the end because it's easiest. I understand. I want to do the hard things first, right? I get that feeling. But let me explain to you why I think life insurance should go last, and I'm just going to explain the way through, okay? Especially if you're coming from an industry that's not finance. Just like me. I was a liquor store salesman, or they called me a manager, but literally I was the only manager and there's one other employee. So I just got a promotion but didn't get a pay bump. I basically was the one who would hear the gripes from the employee about the problems, and then I'd go to the owners and hear the gripes about the employees from the owners. Perfect. So now, the thing about it is, if you go to ethics first, which I think you should, you start learning about the words of our business: insured, beneficiary, insurer, claim, and all these words that come through it. Okay? Yeah, liquor store salesmen stick together. Just kidding. So, ethics will help you learn the words of the business first. And it's the easiest one. It's kind of dipping your toe in. I'm going to use an analogy for learning how to swim. Okay? Ethics is kind of like getting in the kiddie pool. You learn what it's like to have water dunking your face in. You learn what it's like to, have your face under the water, all that type of stuff. That's great. Then you go to accident sickness. And accident sickness is learning about critical illness, health insurance, disability. You don't necessarily have to write those down, but that's what they're about. So you learn when you can deliver a policy, when you can't. What are riders? How does beneficiary bit work? You kind of learn the ways of the insurance world in a way. Then you move on to segregated funds, which is the investment module. And you learn high risk, low risk, RSPs, TFSAs, all those things that we're going to go through over the next coming weeks. And then you get to life insurance last. And life insurance has products that have insurance and investments combined in one product. So it's like if you were to jump from the kiddie pool into the deep end, if you jumped right to life insurance. You don't know how to tread water. You don't know how to really hold your breath. You don't know how to swim, tread water, any of that stuff. You don't know how insurance works. You don't know how investments work, and you don't know how they work together when you jump in like that. And it's really hard. So if you can go through accident and sickness and learn a little bit of how the insurance world works, and you do the segregated funds, you learn a little bit about how investments work. When you get to life insurance, you're going to understand how both of them work. You just got to understand how they work together now, not separately, plus altogether. That's why I always recommend Life Last. I wouldn't say life insurance is the hardest module. It's not. If you take it through that way, life insurance does not seem as hard as most people say it is. Trust me. But you got to work your way through. Now, that does not mean if you struggle on accident sickness and you're having a tough time with it, or you're really struggling with segs and you can't make your way through, please change modules. The more you learn about all of it, the more you learn about any of it. Okay? There'll be questions that'll blend between. So if you're really struggling in one module, say segregated funds, it's okay to go life insurance if you're struggling in 6. Once you get life insurance done, you come back. That's okay. But I would say going through that way works the best. Now, through this process, right? Step 1, study, perfect. Step 2 and step 3 can kind of be interchangeable. Taking a mock exam or taking chapter quizzes. Like I said, chapter quizzes are better if you're struggling with where you need to work on it. Mock exams are good for telling you general. Mock exams, I think you should probably get 70 to 75 before you take your first cert. But that's just for maximum success. Okay? You're going to get a little bit of a lower mark on your cert than you are on your mocks. That's just the truth. Okay? Now, if you don't, that's awesome. I'm happy for you. But most of us would say that that's true. I get a 70% on my mocks because I'm a little bit more nervous, taking a little bit more serious, and just overall it's a little bit tougher. My mark's going to go down a little bit. So let's leave that 10 to 15% buffer. So if you lose 10 to 15% in there, you're still going to get that 60 or higher. Once you pass that, after you do that 70, 75 on the mock, you take your certification. You get that 60%, you move forward to the next module. If you don't pass, you just start back in number 1 and work your way through. Maybe I got to watch YouTube videos in those chapters that I'm not so good at again. And then you repeat. And just make sure maybe you raise your mock exam and your chapter quiz standard. Instead of going for 70s, maybe you go for 75, 80s now. If you raise your standard, you'll raise your standard on the test. It's all within your control. And then once you get all your certifications done, you get all 4 of those modules done, you move on to the provincial exams. And for anyone that doesn't know, the whole thing is open book. So mock exams, you have access to the textbook. Certification exams, you're going to have access to the textbook. Provincial exams, you're going to have access to the textbook. So if I were to explain this in a way that kind of talks about traditional schooling in a way, you're taking an accelerated version of this course, what they call outreach, at your own time. So the reason why we have to pass these certification exams is to certify us to be able to challenge the provincial exams. If you didn't want to go through the accelerated course that we go through, you could go pay at a university to have a 6-month-ish course to pass the HLQP. And by the way, I've met people that have a 6-month course to go through, which is scary to me because I can explain it in 2 weeks and they take 6 months to do it. It scares me. But either way, let's just work our way through outreach quicker rather than slower, please. I know some of us have been here for a few times and never taken a test. I would challenge you to go take one. I don't care which one, just one. Because you got to take that first step first, right? You got to put your toe in the water first if you're going to learn how to swim. You can't just be standing on the outside and be like, I'm going to do this to swim and I do this to shake my legs. No, eventually you got to get in the pool. Right? And I'm not saying that to make you feel bad if you haven't. That's not the point. I'm trying to push you to go do it because you know what? Your whole life is on the other side of you passing your exams. So just don't delay it. Okay. Everybody good with this so far? We're going to talk about the certs a little bit later. We're going to talk about the provincials again a little bit later. Don't you worry. But this is, I think, the best success progress. Okay? Now, not every day that you're studying exams or every day that you're doing exams or something like that is going to be easy. And I know that this just showed up on everyone's face because everyone's face lit up from the white, and I can see it. There's going to be days that challenge you during this. Life. There's days that life challenges you. There's days that licensing challenges you. There's going to be a day where you take a test and you're going to fail. Now, some of you know I pass everything. Perfect. I'm super pumped for you. Other people, I fail. Now let me explain what a failure on a test means. Nothing. Doesn't really mean much. It means that you got to get a higher mark next time. That's it. For anyone who's in the room, I just want to make sure that I explain this because I see all 75-ish of us. Please understand me when I say your mark on a test does not show you the value of you as a human being. Stop making it what that is. I've had people come up and be like, I can't pass this exam. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if this is for me. I don't think I can do this. And they go down this rabbit hole of they got 56.7% on their test, which basically means they had one question off and they couldn't pass. Guys, it's just a test. And I joke about this, and it's just funny to me. There's a test that I could take no matter how many times I take it in my entire life and fail it, no matter how many times I try. And I'm okay with it. And for those of us that have been here before, you know what I'm going to say. It's a pregnancy test. And for those of you that haven't heard it, yeah, that's true. But guess what? Could you let that get to you? Yeah, of course you could. But it's just a test. Right? Just because you can't pass this test doesn't mean that you can't pass in the future. This is a 175-minute window of your life. That's it. And sometimes you're going to have to remind yourself why you wanted to do it in the first place. Okay? Parents probably have to remind themselves why they do all the things that they do for their children sometimes. Right? My brother I have a niece and a nephew. My niece is almost 4, my nephew's almost 2. And trust me when I tell you, there are days that test him. And there's days where they test me sometimes. Right? They push you just because they can, but then those moments where you're just enjoying time with them, that's why. And you remind yourself of that sometimes, okay? I just want to make sure that we talk about that. It's not always going to be easy, but you can make it through. There's no one in here that I could talk to for more than 20 minutes on a call and that you could convince me you couldn't do it. Everybody can do it. All right. Now, I put this in here. Eric, why don't you teach ethics content? Because during my weekend boot camps, I don't teach any ethics content. We're going to teach a little bit today, but I'm going to explain to you why I don't teach 2 hours worth of ethics content. Because in the other modules, I am going to teach 2 hours worth of content. The first thing is the ethics test is a shorter test. It's only 20 questions, whereas the other 3 are 30 questions for the certification. That means you have about 3.5 minutes per question rather than 2.5. So you have more time to search, more time to look things up, and usually more time to get a better mark. Excuse me. The second thing is a lot of the definitions in ethics are really searchable. And I'm hoping we can talk about searching today and kind of help us figure out what to search. Or if you were in that yesterday, you learned a little bit what I searched, things that aren't there that I don't know, or unique to that question. That's usually what I search. What I don't know in the question and what's unique in that question that's not in most questions. That's usually what I search. And then I put core ethics here because these are the core ethics practices that they talk about. Having good faith, managing conflicts, don't do unfair practices, acting timely and fairly, and act within the conducts or the rules. Okay? I just got a text from someone saying my agent's having a tough time coming in. So just give me 1 sec. I'm just going to make sure. I'm going to say, hey, teaching right now. I would say, make sure they try and join from the email they get when they register. It has a link. Get right in. There we go. So I guess it's not just you all. There's a couple other people too. And I apologize. Can you repeat what to search? Yes. I search what I don't know in the question. So if they bring up something like terminal illness benefit and I don't know what that is, I search what that is. Or I search what's unique in that question that's not in many questions. So I don't just search insurance every time, because every question has something to do with insurance. And usually there's about 200 to 250 hits of insurance if you search. So then you have to go through 200 to 250 things. And that might not be worth it. Okay. Now these core ethics, a lot of us could say that those core ethics are just kind of assumed in this industry, right? You got to do good faith. You got to manage some conflicts. Don't be unfair. Treat your clients good and act within the rules. I get that. And that's sometimes why ethics is easier for some people, because they can common sense know that. Because ethics is very subjective in a way, I would say. Okay? Sometimes you could say, I'm ethical. And some people say that person isn't ethical. But I'll tell you one thing. That other person thinks they're ethical in what they're doing. Right? Everyone's ethical in their own minds. And I'm not saying that some of you are not. That's not what I mean at all. But every one of us thinks we're ethical in what we're doing most of the time. But there has to be a standard across all of it. And so understand that that's what this course is, to set that standard between everything. So let's get a little bit deeper in there. I'm still curious of ethics, Eric. What should I do? 1, familiarize yourself with the search function. And we're going to do that today. We're going to go through it. And hopefully get everyone to, put a couple of things in the chat what to search. And then we're going to search them and see how it goes. See if we need to change it. See what else we got to search. And stuff like that. Just making sure I get this person in. Perfect. The second thing is you could watch the need to know videos. Just like I mentioned before, watching need to know videos or coming to meetings like this. That's how you learn. That's how you study. And then remember, you're answering the golden standard. And what I mean by golden standard is, if they give you multiple things an agent can do, you will pick the highest standard out of the group. So if they say, the client calls you and says, I want to cancel my policy. They'll give you a couple options. They'll say, well, 1, tell the client they're crazy, don't answer their calls. Right? That's probably not good. 2, send them the paperwork, don't follow up on emails, don't follow up with them at all. That's probably not right either. 3, send them the paperwork, go through the paperwork, submit it to the insurance company. That's probably good. And then 4, they would be like, give them the paperwork, send the paperwork, go through it with them, and follow up with the insurance company to make sure they got it. Well, that would be the highest, best golden standard of the group. That's probably what you should pick out of it. That's probably the one. Okay? Does everyone understand what I'm saying? Okay, a thumbs up from everybody? Yeah. Now you might be saying, well, this is simple, but I need to verbalize it to make sure that we're all on the same page. Okay? I want everybody to have the same chance. Now, let's keep going. There's a couple more. Like I said a little bit, ethics are about learning the language of this course. Like I said, I came from liquor store background. I came from knowing what wine went with what meat, which is funny because my brother was a meat manager in a grocery store at the time. It was really funny. He would tell you what meat, I'd tell you what wine. Perfect. Pincer attack, right? But I'm just kidding. But literally, the math that I had to do in that industry, guys, is remembering what year people were 18 or over at. Because I live in Alberta, for whether they were 18 or over. That was like the max of my math. I type things in, it tells me how much money, tells me what to put in the debit machine, whatever. That's the peak of my math. Now, please understand that just because you may be coming from a different industry doesn't mean that you can't learn this. Right? I often get the feedback, Eric, I just don't understand all this. It's a new thing. I'm getting frustrated. It's just getting to me. When you started at your current job, wasn't it a little overwhelming at the start? Didn't they have to teach you everything about everything at the start? And then you had to ask questions as you went through, and you didn't grasp it the first time, and then you ended up doing the same 20% of things 80% of the time. right? Yeah, that's how they train you. You got to learn a little bit of everything first, and then you can specialize and you get sent in different areas. It's the same thing here, guys. There's going to be a lot of things that you maybe learn in this course that is not what you would necessarily use in the field. Why? Because we're like every job. Sometimes you do the same 20% of things 80% of the time. But we still have the option to do all of these things, right? That's why we can search. Because in real life, we can search, right? We can look up Google or whatever you want to call it. Oh, why did it go all the way back? I'm going back. Don't worry, we're back. Sorry. I hit my scroll wheel and all of a sudden it went crazy. Now, I want to explain what a beneficiary, claims, insured, and insurer are, because I find those are the things that you got to make sure you know. And I want to make sure that we're all clear, okay? The beneficiary is the person that will receive the money from an insurance company when that person passes away, gets sick, or the insurance policy pays out. Whoever's going to receive the money from that or the benefit of that will be called the beneficiary of that plan. Okay? The second one, claims, that's when you reach out to the insurance company and say, hey, there's a claim, or at least I deserve some money from that scenario, right? I got sick in my critical illness. My dad, sister's mother passed away. Whatever it ends up being. That's called a claim. The insured and insurer is one of the things that confused me the most because they're so close. And I got them mixed up way too often. It messed me up. Here's the difference. The insurer, ER, insurance company. The insured, ED, the person who has the insurance. So if it's my life insurance, I bought it from, say, Industrial Alliance. Industrial Alliance would be considered the insurer because they're insuring me. I would be considered the insured ED because the insurance is on me. Now, that does not necessarily mean that I'm the owner all the time. Parents can buy policies on children. So the owner of the plan could be the parent, but the insured ED is the child. It's whoever's life or whoever's health is getting the insurance. Okay? Is everybody clear on all those? Just getting everyone a chance to write down. Okay, good. Because those words are going to show up in every module. And if we mess those guys up, well, then we have a tough time. Say that again, please. The insured ED is the person who gets the insurance. It's on their life. The insurer is the insurance company who is insuring them. Someone asked, what is a contingent beneficiary? Good question. You can take contingent as a word and make it secondary. So there's primary beneficiaries, which is the first beneficiary, first of the line. If the primary beneficiary is no longer living, it will go down to the secondary or contingent beneficiary. The word contingent means in case of something. Contingent plans are like in case the first plan doesn't work. This is the beneficiary that it will pay in case the first beneficiary is not there. Secondary beneficiary. Good question. If we have questions, can we ask you after? Sure. I'll probably stick around for 5 minutes at the end of today to answer a couple of specific questions, but the chat's a good place for it. Some people might benefit from the questions. Now, number 6, I want you to search governing bodies. There's a lot of things like FINTRAC, CCIR, Assurus. I don't know, I could keep going. But I want you to search them almost every single time, especially in ethics. Okay? Why do I say that? Because it's hard to memorize everything. And you probably shouldn't, right? There's a tipping point between needing to know it and knowing you can get it. I don't remember how old age security works. I don't remember how the Canada Protection Plan works, or no, Canada Pension Plan works all the time. So I always search OAS in the textbook whenever it comes up. I always search CPP when it comes up, no matter what module it's in. Because the rules are so if and this in case of that, that I can't remember them every time. And I wouldn't expect you to either. They said they registered 4 times and it's not letting them on. Any way we can get them on? They can try. I don't know. Anyone had any tips? Try their phone? Was that one tip that a couple people said? Someone's having a tough time.
Did they go to their email?
I don't know if they did. This is like through their field trainer. This is the info they have. They have to go to the email they get after registering. Not too sure. They may register for a Zoom account. Let me say, I see that. Okay. It's weird how we haven't had that many issues for the last like 2 weeks, but now all of a sudden it's today. I don't know why. But okay, we're gonna tackle it. I'm gonna figure out why. I always have issues signing on. That's too bad. So I had to sign into my account even though I'd registered as technically already on Zoom. I've said them that they should go to the email a bunch of times already, but they're not listening. But that's okay. I don't want to sacrifice 77 of us for one person. Okay? Got through cell phone. Some people say cell phone works better today. I wonder why. I wonder if Zoom's having issues. Because honestly, you should be able to get on once you register, clicking that link every time. Yeah. You know, it'd be helpful as if you could show us all the websites you bookmarked to prepare for the exams. The half-screen trick you do. I think you showed us that the first week. Yeah, we're going to get to that point. Don't you worry. But you know what? The websites that I bookmark? HLOQP.com. Because that has everything that you need, to be honest with you. HLOQP.com, where you register for your course. They have everything that you need. But we're going to talk about the exams and stuff in a bit. Don't worry. We're not just doing ethics for 2 hours. Don't worry. Okay? Like I said, we're going to talk about searching, and I'm going to show you searching. And I'm going to talk about what to search, why to search, how to search, and we're going to do it together. But I'm going to pull up the textbook first. Okay? Let me put it on this side. I'm going to put it on the right side of my screen here. Okay, this is my sign-in, which looks a little bit different than yours. Okay? Yours looks like this. By the way, this is the website, HLLQP.com. This is where you need to go to get all your info. It'll look like this. Welcome to the Oliver's program for WFG. Okay, WFG Oliver's. Mine looks a little bit different because mine's the teaching side of things. Okay, once you register for the course and you hop on here, in my courses, it'll show you all of your courses, ethics, life insurance, all that stuff. Mine has textbooks in every single one of these modules. Yours will not. Yours has its own slot down here where mine is missing one. Right here. And it'll say AMF textbooks. That's where all your textbooks are. You click on them. Ethics, accident, sickness, segs, life, they're all going to be there. Okay? Now, I'm going to open up a textbook, and we're going to pull up also a mock exam, and I'm going to show us how to search for a few things. And I'm going to get you guys to tell me what you think I should search for. And then we're going to talk about the split screen and all that stuff. Just like one person asked, which they only have their first name. I don't know their first name. But let's pull up ethics first. Okay? I'm going to pull up my textbook. And often the textbook comes up like this when you hop into it. Okay? It'll look kind of like this, where there's this bar on the left side, kind of in the way. How do we get rid of that? You click the hamburger menu. I call it a hamburger menu because it's like bun, meat, bun, right? 3 things. I don't know if that's what you're supposed to call them, but that's what I call them. So I click on this hamburger menu, and it goes away. So now I have all my course here, okay? Now I'm going to show you what to press to get your search bar, because right now there isn't a way to search on this yet, right? We can just scroll through it, but we got to get our search bar up. You can see what I'm going to click over here. So I'm on a Windows computer. Oh, I got rid of my textbook. It's okay. I'll pull it back up. I'm going to hold down the control function. I want you up here so everyone can read it. Okay, you're going down here then. Control F as in find. And brings up this little white bar on the top. Boom, that's my search bar. For those of us that are in Apple, it's going to be Command F. So the Command key is down kind of by your control keys on your Mac computer. Command F, and it'll bring up the same little bar. Now, some of you are going to pipe in and say, this doesn't work for me. My guess is you are either on a Chromebook or a tablet. Okay? If you're on a tablet, the search bars are a little bit different. If you're on a Chromebook, it's a little bit different. But I want to make sure that I make this clear. Chromebooks and tablets are not able to do the certification exams, the official exams. Okay? So when you take the official exams, the certification exams, you have to use a Windows or an Apple-based computer. You're not going to be able to use a Chromebook or tablet or iPad. Now that doesn't mean that you can't study on them and practice on them. You can. But you're not going to be able to do the official exams in there. Okay? That might mean you might have to borrow it from another agent or borrow the field trainer's computer when you're officially going to take your certs. Okay? They say they're going to make Chromebooks available, but I've been watching and waiting for that to happen for a year and a half already. So we'll see. Everybody kind of getting how to pull the search bar up. Okay, and we're going to talk about how to pull the search bar up in the certs soon. We're going to go to the next one here. I want to talk about making the split screen. This is, I think, the best way for you to practice your test taking, is to do half textbook, half test. Okay, half textbook, half test on the screen. So I'm going to pull up a mock exam for ethics and professional practice. I'm going to click on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this step over here. As you can tell, I've been on this test for a long time because I haven't finished it because I just did a couple questions. But you get the idea. 1,869 hours. That's a lot of days. But anyway, I'm going to click or press what this is. I'm going to hold the Windows key down on my keyboard, which I'm going to pull up my keyboard for everybody. I'm going to hold the Windows key on my keyboard. And I'm going to press the right arrow key because I want my test to be on the right half of my screen. So I click that. And it's going to ask me of all the other things I have open on my computer. What do you want on the left half, Eric? Well, I want my course. So it splits it exactly half. Now, for the people who have Apple that don't have Windows, you have up at the top, you have a green, yellow, and a red button up here in the top. Might be on the top left, might be on the top right, I'm not too sure. If you hover over or click and hold on the green one, it'll give you options like this. So if I click on the left half, it puts it in the left half. And then I pick what's on the right half in the Apple side. It'll work for both people. But this is how I think you should practice. So if I pull my textbook back up, test, textbook. Half and half. Why is this beneficial? Because as you go through the tests, as you go through your practice tests, you can look at the textbook and look at the test side by side. Plus, and I'll say this as delicately as I can possibly say it, because I'm sure you guys can appreciate this, you don't have other things open on your computer to distract you while you take your test. Guys, I'm human like everybody else. If I have a little window up there watching whatever on Netflix, I'm going to be watching that every once in a while. And don't get me wrong, can I listen to music and stuff like that while I do my practice tests? Yes. Can I listen to music while I do my official tests? No. So I would recommend you just try and do it silently, studyingly, properly, to make sure that you're mentally prepped for understanding what it's going to be like in the official test. Okay? Now, let's go through a couple questions and talk about what to search, why to search. Okay? I have a couple questions already answered here, but we're not going to do those ones. We're going to pick a couple different ones. So, and I'm going to get us in the chat to give me things to search, and then we're going to search them, and we're going to find out, are they good searches, bad searches, what's better. So let's do this one. Kimberly's an insurance agent, but is also involved in several other small business endeavors. She wants to ensure that she's acting ethically in her practice. Which of the following is true? Now remember, when we go through questions where they say, is this true or false, make sure you know which one you're answering. Yes, true, or no, false, because you can get them wrong pretty quick if we don't know. A, Kimberly should never place herself in conflict even if a client approves. B, Kimberly should not be in a position to use coercion or undue influence. C, Kimberly is required to disclose clients only any real conflict that arises. I don't even know what that sentence means because it doesn't seem like it makes sense in English. And D, provincial regulators have a definite list of occupations in which Kimberly must not partake. Now, some of you might be like, Eric, I have no idea what the answer is. Anybody with me? Yeah, it's okay. I'm good. I don't know the answer right away either. So now I need to search something, or I just need to guess if I don't know the answer, right? So there's two ways we can go about searching in here. I can search what's something I don't know what it is, or something unique to this question. And when I say unique to the question, I mean either unique in the question itself or unique in the answers that you can look up to either confirm or eliminate that answer. Because you can search parts of the answer, and if you can't find them, that means it's probably not in the textbook. Or if you can find them, it'll help you clarify that answer to make sure you do it or not. So I'm going to open it up. Does anyone have something that they think would be good to search? And then we're going to search it. Mark says restricted occupations, okay. Conflict, okay. Both of those sound okay. Undue influence, I like that. Thanks, Aaron, for putting your first name in there. I appreciate that. Other small businesses, yeah, those all sound like good things. Those are all coming from the answers, except for other businesses would be the other endeavors, right? Coercion, yeah. So let's try a couple of these and see if we can confirm or go out. Randy put ethics. Let me take ethics as an example here. I'm not trying to laugh at the fact that you put ethics in there, but it's a really good example of if you search something too vague, you get a lot of hits. 225, for example. I know you're joking, but it's a good example anyway, Randy. That means you need to be more specific, more unique to the question if you get too many hits. So let's pick some of the answers in here. I'm going to type in restricted occupations first and see what comes up. And we're going to work our way down. Oh, so there is restricted occupations. Look, so we found a place. There's one hit for restricted occupations. That's pretty unique, but so let's read it and see if it helps us. Regulatory authorities can restrict certain types of additional employment for life insurance agents. For example, restriction exists on licensing of clergymen, liquor store employees, isn't that funny, or police officers. Historically, provincial regulation or provincial legislation has provided a list of restricted occupations with regards to selling life insurance. However, regulators have moved away from this approach to provide a broader restrictions, which is as follows. The individual must not be in a position to use coercion or undue influence in order to control, direct, or secure insurance business. How many of us would say, Eric, you read all of that, I understood all of it? There's like a couple hands that go up. How many would say, I'm the opposite? I kind of didn't get it, but I understood some of it. Yeah. Guys, reading the textbook itself is kind of like reading the dictionary to learn English. All the words are there, but that doesn't mean it makes sense when you read it. Right? There's been times where I look words up in the dictionary and I read them and I still don't understand what they mean. And that's like sometimes going through the textbook. So here's a tip and kind of a technique I want to give everybody. If you read a sentence in the textbook that doesn't really make a full, like I really get what that means, I want you to reread it in simpler words as if you're explaining it to somebody else. So let me reread it. Regulatory authorities can restrict certain types of additional employment for life insurance agents. I got that part. Thanks, Catherine. No worries. For example, restrictions exist on licensing of clergymen, liquor store employees, and police officers. Okay, so there's some restrictions on those three. I got that part. Historically, in history, provincial legislation has provided a list of restricted occupations with regards to selling life insurance. Okay, I got that part, right? They used to have restrictions. However, regulators have moved away from this approach to provide broader restriction, which is as follows. This whole part I get so far, okay? They've come to a broader approach. They've opened things up, which is as follows. The individual must not be in a position to use coercion or undue influence in order to control, direct, or secure insurance business. That's the part that I probably don't understand, right? If I don't know what undue influence is or in order to control, direct, or secure, I get that, okay? I could look up undue influence because Aaron put that in, and that's a good thing to look up, but I just want to explain it to you, okay? Undue influence is the idea that you have a job in a position of power to somebody else. And if you say, hey, I have this job in life insurance, I want you to buy life insurance, if they have a reason to think that you're going to act negatively on them if they say no, that's considered undue influence. Now, that's not like they'll be disappointed in you. I'm talking in regards to work. Like, you're a captain at a police academy and they're like a frontline police officer. They might be worried that you're going to treat them badly. Yeah, or in there, I won't give you the ticket if you buy a policy. Something like that. Liquor store employees are on that list, and the reason why liquor store employees are on the list is we deal with people with addiction all the time. Right? When I worked at a liquor store, I'll be honest and I'll just be straight up with everybody. I saw the same 5 people every day. Every day. 6 to 7 days a week, because that's how much I worked. And if I had the conversation with them like, hey, like, I'm not going to sell you your liquor unless you buy this policy from me or something, that's called undue influence, okay? Now so does this give us the ability to make a decision based on that answer? Okay? So then I'm going to take what I know from this and I'm going to go back to the answer. D, provincial regulators have a definite list of occupations in which Kimberly must not partake. You might be saying, well, that's true. Liquor store employees, clergymen, police officers. You could say, okay, that told me that. But that means that they have moved away from this approach. So there's not a definite list anymore. They moved away from it. So I'd be leaning a little bit away from D now. Is everyone kind of understanding what I'm saying? Okay, so now I move on to something else. Like I could look up coercion that Cassidy put in there. So I'm going to look up coercion by spelling it out. By the way, I usually type things in slowly. Why do I type things in slowly? Imagine if they put in coerce with his RCE at the end rather than coercion with an N at the end, but I type it in so fast that I miss it. That's not good. So I type it in slowly to kind of take me where I want to go in a way. Now, check this out. Rules imposed upon an agent. An agent who holds a life insurance license shall not offer inducements, which is like giving them gifts, trying to induce a sale on them with some kind of monetary. Use coercion or undue influence in order to control, direct, secure insurance. That sounds like what we did before. So I'm already thinking B sounds pretty darn good because I've seen that twice so far. Everybody kind of with me so far? Yeah. Now, this doesn't explain what coercion is, so I'm going to keep going using the arrows, and I'm going to find if they can explain it to me. Oh, we're in the same area, conflict of interest occupations, and it's in here. So it doesn't even explain what coercion is. Now, maybe I didn't use coercion, I go to coerce maybe. I can see if there's a couple in here. An agent who holds a life insurance shall not coerce or propose directly and indirectly to coerce a prospective buyer of life insurance through an influence of a professional or business relationship. Basically, coerce is to be like convince them in like a negative way, essentially. Massage the truth to make them do it. That's not good. So now if I read through this answer, and I'm thinking A should never place herself in conflict even if the client approves. You should probably not put yourself in conflict, but there isn't a way like you never could. Coerce could be like a bribe, yes, or just convincing them in a way that's not in their best, what's the best way to say it? It's kind of like convincing them to buy it because it benefits you rather than benefiting them is a way to say coerce in a way. Okay? I want you to buy the most expensive one, and I'm going to coerce you to buy that because it pays me more rather than it's better for you. That'd be what coercion is. Okay? C, Kimberly is required to disclose to clients only any real conflict that arises. Yeah, when it only benefits the agent. Good way to say it, Tyler. So I'm already looking at B because I've seen it 2 or 3 times so far in there that the agent can do that. And my gut's telling me B. Anybody else with me on that so far? Yeah. Now here's the thing, something that we can do in the practice test that we can't do during the official test. Spend this time. So if anyone knows, and maybe I'll just make sure everybody knows, you have 75 minutes to complete these exams, just like it says at the top. Mock exams, you can take longer than that, and that's okay. For you to spend the time to search, spend the time to learn that thing before you take the next step. During the certification exams, if you don't finish at the 75 minutes, all the ones you missed will be considered wrong. There's no extra time after 75 minutes. So I would really recommend making sure you do get a wrap on that time frame at some point during study. But this is more about learning what to search than it is anything else. Okay? Let's go to question 3. Okay? Tony delivers an individual policy to his client Ron. The policy was issued by the insurer, that's the insurance company, 5 days ago. Ron signs the acceptance forms, but he's having second thoughts about the policy. How many days does Ron have to take a free look at the policy? Please put something in the chat to let me know what you think we should look up. What's unique, or what do you not know about this question? Feel free. Rachel says free look. Cassie also says free look. Yeah, I'd say so. Eric, what's this free look thing? Right, exactly. I don't know what that is, so maybe we should look that up. So I'm going to type that in. Well, look. 10-day free look. Well, that probably answers the question, right? But I just want to make this clear in the textbook for everybody. My arrow turns into a hand when I hover over this in the section. That means I can click it, and it'll take me right to page 50. So I'm going to click on this, and it'll take me right to page 50. And one of the things that frustrates me about this course, I'll point it out to everybody, this is not page 50. This is page 66. So that's why I always click on the table of contents. If you were to try and scroll through to get to page 50, it's not page 50. So I maybe don't like that. But anyway, let's read this whole 10-day free look thing and see if it'll help us make a decision on the answer. Okay? When an individual policy is delivered, the policyholder is said to have a 10-day free look. This is allowed the time to review the policy to confirm that's consistent with what they expected when they first applied. So to make sure it's the same as what they applied for. During this time, they can change their mind and return the policy for a full refund. The policy is effectively annulled, which annulled means like never happened, rather than like, there's a thing where something's called voided and voidable. When you void something, it's like it never happened, okay? Annulled. Right. Where is it? Here, the technical term is rescission. I just tell, when you see the word rescission, I will just tell you to use the word canceled, okay? Just substitute those words. Meaning the contract is withdrawn or rescinded. The terms of the policy will govern the contract right to rescind the guideline, or the contract. Guideline G10 in Canadian life insurance. See this CLHIA thing? I don't know what that is either. But I feel like I already know the answer, because I could keep reading and get confused, couldn't I? I feel like I just started to get confused by seeing that, so I'm going to pause. I know it's 10 days, right? 10-day free look. So that means I know it's not A, I know it's not D already, because those are not 10 days. Then I go to the question and I ask myself this: of the two answers left over, what's the difference? A says 10 days from policy issue date. C says 10 days from policy delivery date. Oh, so now between issue date and delivery date, which one makes more sense? Well, in this situation, it says when it's delivered, they have 10-day free look. So the answer is going to be 10 days from the policy delivery date in this question. Now, the other tip I'll give you in here, because sometimes you're going to see these questions where it's not as easy just to type up free look, right? And it shows up once. I would recommend you search the amount of days, because there's only a certain amount of things that are 30 days, 15 days, 90 days. Those are very specific things in the textbook. If I were to search 10-day, you have 3 hits, and here's one of them as well. So there'd be a quick way to find it too, right? Termination for non-payment, that's not what we're looking for. Termination of accident sickness insurance, 10 days of written notice, and same kind of thing. And this section, 3 hits. So that's another way to make it easy on you to find it. Go by the amount of days. That's another thing that's good. Okay, everybody okay? Yes, okay, good. Let's keep going. How do you know how many questions are left to complete? Because the ones that are gray, you got to complete, Debbie. The green ones are already done. Yeah, you got it. All right, let's do number 6. Jake and Peyton, recently married and have decided to meet with a lawyer to have a document created that will set out their rights in the event their marriage breaks down. I didn't know you could do this, by the way. The document they're having created is best known as what? This is one of the reasons why I think it's so easy and searchable. Thanks, Andrew, for chipping in. This is why I think that it's the most searchable exam, because you know what you could do? You could look up marriage contract, you could look up marriage license, you could look up cohabitation agreement, and you could look up prenuptial agreement. And you could just figure out whichever one of those 4 matches what they just explained to you. Right? I'd say it's probably prenuptial agreement, because I've heard of that before. But let's go through them all anyway. I know you're all saying it's deep, but let's just go through the process anyway. I'm going to type in marriage contract. And it shows up once. And so I'm going to read this little bit in here and see what it says. Couples may adjust their legal rights before prenuptial or during a relationship by entering into a domestic or marriage contract with each other. Common law couples can also enter into a domestic contract, sometimes called a cohabitation agreement. Oh, so a marriage contract is a cohabitation agreement. So that means neither of them can be right, because neither of them can be wrong, if you look at it that way. I don't know if that made sense when I said that. Both answers can't be right for you to get the question right, is I guess what I'm saying. So that means they automatically can't be the right answer. So I'm going to get rid of A, and I'm going to get rid of C, because they're both the same thing. Now I'm going to go to marriage license, and I'm going to search that and see what I find. Oh, isn't that interesting? I got 0 hits. So you know what that means? It's not in the textbook, so it's probably not the right answer. So I go to the last one. Prenuptial. Oh. There's only one hit, and it's in the exact same situation. Eric, what the heck? Why is it in the same place? Well, maybe I put the dash in and I wasn't supposed to. No, there's still 0. So I guess I gotta leave the dash in. But maybe I should look around in this area since it's taken me here twice to see if I can find the answer. So I'm gonna scroll up maybe. Or read through this whole situation here. So I'm gonna scroll up. Marriage and common law spouse. Okay. Insurance agents will encourage their clients who are single, married, or common law spouses who are expecting a marriage or a relationship breakdown. Does that sound like what we're talking about? Yeah, they talked about relationship breakdown, so I'm going to keep reading. If it doesn't sound like it, I probably wouldn't. In the latter situation, a client can be obligated to pay spousal support and child support. To do this, to a thorough analysis, take these clients' obligations into account and developing a familiarity with how and when support obligations may arise. That might be a confusing sentence, but it has nothing to do with the question, so I'm just going to let that baby lie, and I'm just going to continue until I find what I'm looking for. Okay? This turn and calls for understanding legal relationships clients may enter into with third parties. It's crucial that agents understand the property rights of married spouses usually differ from those from common law spouses. When relationships break down, common law spouses, no presumed division, is different than marriage status, presumed division. Okay? In this regard, furthermore, the rights of married spouses to carry on intestacy, I don't know what that means, but okay, are usually dramatically different from those of common law. Marriage is a form of legal status that is acquired and terminated pursuant to federal law. Can we pause here and just think in the same thing as me? Nothing I've read is helping me so far, right? Ooh, somebody left and the dogs are not very happy about that. That was a dog crying. Somebody left. That's hilarious, but awesome. So good. So I'd be thinking in this moment, you know what? I'm just going to make a decision based on what I know already. Because there's a certain point where you got to basically cut the searching down. Because I could spend 10, 15 minutes searching and it end up getting me no further than right now. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? There's going to be times where you can search and search forever and it'll not help you. And so at this point, I'm thinking in my head, you know what? More searching is not going to help me. I'm just going to make my decision. So based on the fact that A and C are the same thing and the marriage license isn't even in the textbook, I'm just going to pick D then. Sounds like we're studying for the bar exam. Hey, you know what? Studying for the bar exam might help you, but sometimes it's about test-taking tips that take us to the promised land, not just knowing everything, okay? Having an open book test is good and bad, and we got to know the difference. It's good to use a tool like a textbook, but we don't have to use it every single time. But we don't have to keep using it incessantly. It's kind of like a calculator. Just because you have one doesn't mean you use it on every question. Just because you have the textbook doesn't mean you have to use it on every question. But you can. It's there to be there for you. Appreciate Brian coming in and chiming in. All right, moving forward. Can B and D not be in the textbook? In that example, no. There will always be one in the textbook if that's right. Orlando is an insurance agent who wants to ascertain the identity of his client, Juan. Juan produces photocopies of his driver's license and a photocopy of his Canadian passport. He also produces a credit card bearing his name. How can Orlando prove the identity of the client based on the documents produced? Now, I kind of didn't really understand what they said at the end. How can Orlando prove the identity of the client based on the documents? So I'm going to reread that in my own language. How can the agent prove the identity of the client based on that? Okay, I can get that. A, an original driver's license or passport is required to prove identity. That sounds like it makes sense, kind of, but they're not asking, what are other documents you need to prove identity? They're saying, how can we prove identity using these documents? So I'm kind of leaning away, but I could search something like that. An original credit card issued by the bank may be used to prove identity. I know that to be kind of true sometimes, right? If I've gone to Best Buy and I'm doing an online order, they say, can we see one piece of photo ID and a credit card with your name on it? So I'm thinking that might be it. See, a birth certificate must be provided to prove identity. I don't know about you guys, but I don't bring my birth certificate everywhere with me to prove my identity, right? Usually need driver's license, passport, or something like that. Identity can be proven of the photocopies if the two photocopies indicate the same address. You could say, okay, that kind of makes sense, but I'm not confident. Some of us might say, I'm confident. Some of us say, I'm not confident. For those of you that have the confidence to know what the right answer is, you pick it. That's your gut reflex, pick it. It's okay. But for those of us who maybe don't know, we need to search something. So anybody want to throw in what they think? Kara says identification. I'd be saying prove identity maybe, since it's in two of the answers. That may be what I would look up. Will they accept non-valid license or passport? Probably not. Expired and non-valid things are non-valid for a reason. That'd be what I would say. Just like me, when I was working at the liquor store, even if it was the same person, an invalid driver's license did not count because it's invalid. Okay? Let's go look something up. I'm going to go prove identity because that's in two of the answers. And I think that's rare to this question. That's not in most questions. So I'm going to go prove identity and see what happens if I can spell. Not in there. So I guess I got to find something else. Maybe I could look up identity by itself and see what shows up. Well, isn't that fun? This is proof of claim, but proof of identity in general. So maybe I'll click on that and see if it can lead me down the right path. But there's 70 hits, by the way, of identity. So maybe I might have to look up something else if I can't find it right away. Let's look it up. Oh, where is it? Oh, sorry, it's on this page. Okay, proof of identity. When there's a named beneficiary, the insurer will seek satisfactory proof of identity. For example, individuals with common names might face additional hurdles to establish their entitlement. A beneficiary who changed their name, for example, following marriage, will have to prove appropriate. Beneficiaries are sometimes described in terms of relationships such as children. That's not really what I'm looking for, right? It's kind of, I'm feeling like that's not helping me. So I'm maybe going to go to a different version of identity and see how it goes. Are we talking about success policyholders? Not really. Documents required? Maybe. This is proof of claim still. Are we claiming over here? Not really. So I'm thinking maybe this isn't. But I'm going to keep going. Proof of identity. Here's something maybe. Oh, that's the same place. We're going to keep going, keep going, keep going. I'm looking for something that shows passport, driver's license, credit cards, anything like that, right? Keep going. Now, you might be saying, Eric, we're already at 16. We need the 70. Yeah, let's stop the bleeding. Let's try something else, okay? Let's start looking up more specific things. Let's look up driver's license or photocopy or passport. Let's see. So I'm going to try driver's license first. Well, look at that. Methods to verify identity of persons or identities. You more specific, less hits, easier way to get to it. This is more me proving to you specificity, uniqueness gets you where you need to go quicker. Okay? Government issued photo ID. Some examples include Canadian passport, a permanent residence card, a secure certificate of Indian status, driver's license, provincial territorial identification cards. Well, that's pretty black and white, isn't it? Photocopy driver's license. Okay, passport. He also provides credit card and bearing his name. How can he prove? Well, original driver's license and passport. Right? Look, the document must be valid, current, and original. So I would say I'm going to go with A. They might scroll down and be like, well, there are other things. You can do credit file method. That doesn't mean credit card. That means you use their credit filing, because if you do, sometimes they do credit checks to check your identity in some places, right? Keep scrolling down, dual process method, where they ask certain things like your date of birth, your name and address. Credit bureau checks, just like I said. An affiliate member, where they go and talk to other people, banks, foreign banks, cooperative places. Usually this is for people that are outside of the country, that are in the country now, to do it. But I still think driver's license, passport is the best, because they talked about driver's license and photocopy of passport. Is everyone understanding the fact why I searched driver's license? I went super specific, and it took me right where I wanted to be. I could have typed in passport, and it would have taken me right there too. If I could spell passport right, that'd be great. Took me right where I needed to be. Only one in the whole textbook, just like driver's license. That's how we get better at searching. Specificity. Unique to the question. Things I don't know. Okay? For those of us that are like, Eric, I don't know how to search, I'm teaching you now. Hopefully it's sinking in. Okay? Let's do another one. Let me pick a good one. Oh, let's do this one. Hopefully I'll learn from the last one. Marjorie is an insurance agent and has reasonable grounds to believe a new client is attempting a suspicious transaction. Does Marjorie have an obligation to report the suspicious transaction to FINTRAC? And if so, how many days must she report it? So they're saying, do they have an obligation to do it? And within how many days? Well, Mark's already got a good one, suspicious transaction, because it's in the question twice. FINTRAC, good one, because that's specific to this question we haven't seen before. The other thing we could look up is, just like I mentioned before, the amount of days you could look up to. 20 days, 15 days, 30 days. But let's try some. Let's try a couple. So let's look up suspicious transaction. I didn't even type in more than 4 letters on suspicious, and look where it took me. Obligation to report suspicious transactions to FINTRAC. Well, that probably sounds like it's going to get us the answer, isn't it? Because that's exactly what they're asking. You could look up FINTRAC as well, and it would show up here too. So let's read through some. A suspicious transaction is a transaction or attempted transactions giving reasonable grounds to suspect that it's related to an ML, money laundering, or a TF, which I don't necessarily know what TF means, offense, whether it's not to be completed. I think that's like a tax evasion, tax fraud. I'm pretty sure what that is. Tax fraud. Okay? Or trafficking. Sure. Let's go with that. Those are all bad. In general, a transaction could be related to money laundering or tax fraud offense of it, or a series of transactions raising questions whether or causes doubt, concern, or mistrust. Basically, what money laundering is, for everyone that may not know, money laundering is taking money from outside the country into the country that comes from somewhere illegally, in a sense of like drug money, military money, political money that's not supposed to go country to country, that person doesn't own. Essentially, like, you could think embezzling, people could say, but embezzling is like them keeping it from themselves from a company. This is going country to country, right? And tax fraud is evading tax, right? And trying not to pay tax in some way. There's no threshold or minimum for reporting suspicious transactions, so that doesn't mean it has to be over 10,000, 100,000, whatever. It could be any amount, okay? In addition to identifying suspicious transactions, the insurance of person's representative must also acknowledge the presence of money laundering or tax fraud indicators. Money laundering or tax fraud indicators are potential warning signs that trigger suspicions or indicate that something is unusual in the absence of reasonable explanation. That sentence was a doozy, so I'm going to reread it in my own words. Oh, terrorist fraud. That's better. That makes sense. Money laundering or terrorist fraud indicators are the potential signs likely to make you suspicious and tell you that something is unusual in the absence, the lack of reasonable explanation. See, that sentence made way more sense to me. I don't know about you guys. I'm rereading it in a sentence that makes more sense to me. I read it in a way that makes more sense to me. Now I can continue. These signs are generally stem from one or more facts, behaviors, models, or other contextual aspects, other things that reveal irregularities in transactions. Whew! So, did that tell us anything? Maybe. That you can do. At least you have an obligation to tell FinTrack. Part one of this question is yes, right? The second part is how many days? We could keep reading and we're probably going to get there. But I'm going to look for how many days. 20 days, 15 days, 30 days, or nothing. That's what I'm going to look for now, okay? So I'm going to scroll down a little bit, looking for a certain amount of days. And there's a lot of stuff here, isn't there? Right? You could keep reading this for a long time. Would I recommend you just keep reading it? Probably not, because we got half the answer right already. Now we're looking for how many days. So I'm just going to keep going and see if I find anything. Oh, the terrorist property. That's what it was. Terrorist property or terrorist fraud, I guess. But let's look at this. Suspicious transactions are reported confidential. In addition, the insurance representative must not disclose to the client or beneficiary until they completed the suspicious transaction to FinTrack. Failure to fulfill can have penalties. Protected from legal proceedings when submitting. It didn't have any days, did it? I feel like I scrolled through all of it. I didn't see how many days. Someone says page 140. Okay. So why don't I start searching up how many days? I finished half of it. I'm going to start looking up 20 days, 15 days, 30 days, and see what comes up. Because they always take me there. 20 days. Nothing. 0. So guess what? That's probably not the answer. Let's move on. 15 days. Nothing. Well, I guess that's not the answer either. So I'm already thinking it's probably D or C, sorry. Just because it has 30 days, but let's look that up. 30 days for what is this section for? Minors and guardians. That's probably not what we're looking for. So I'm going to continue. Termination of non-payment of life insurance. We're talking FinTrack stuff. So I'm going to keep going. Absolute assignment. That's not what we're talking about either. Critical illness. That's not what we're talking about. Disability and long-term care. We're not talking about that either. So this is why I'm going through. Time to pay a claim. No. Some delay. No. Page 92, medical and other examinations, right? That's not what we're looking for. Page 107, identity verifications, no. Contract delivery, 30 days. So I went through all of them, and I couldn't find 20, 15, or 30 days in this conversation yet. So Eric, then what do? I know Sam's putting page 140 in there, so we'll go to page 140. But I want to get there by searching something properly. But maybe we'll look up suspicious transaction again, I guess. Maybe we went astray by looking this up. Page 32. Let's work our way through. See if it'll take us to that page 140 that he was talking about. 21, that's where we were. Moving through. 122. 124. 32. So let's look up page 140 that they brought up already. Let's find it. Let's check. Oh, page 124. Okay, so we were there. Look, so we found our way there. But I was looking for. There we go. Okay. I can search the page number for sure. I can skip through. Okay, here we go. Let's just read through the whole thing here. So this says large cash transactions within 15 calendar days after the transaction. That's what that says right here. 15 calendar days. So, you know what that means, everybody? And this is kind of my point to my conversation is sometimes they don't go 15 days. They do 15 calendar days. Sometimes it's 30 days. This is why I type things in slowly. And I know that we're taking up time just working our way through and fighting our way through. But here's what I want to understand, and just why the whole point of this whole conversation, of this question. Sometimes searching is not helping you. It's hindering you. You can search forever sometimes. And like I said in the last question that we were talking about, you can search and search and search and sometimes not find where you need to go. Okay? Now, you might be saying, Eric, you're supposed to teach us how to search, not how not to search. And I get that. But my point to this is, there are a group of people that go through this test that use the textbook on every single question. And then they spend a bunch of time on every single question. And then they have a hard time not using the textbook to answer a question. And I want you to understand this. You trusting yourself will matter just the same. Okay? Is there a difference between normal days and calendar days? Good question. Calendar days are different than normal days, and not in a way. It's calendar days or business days. Business days, Monday to Friday. Saturday, Sunday don't count. Calendar days, Saturday and Sunday do count. Good question. So, the answer in this question is the 15 days. 15 calendar days. Okay? But I'm making a point doing this question and having the conversation that if you search everything, sometimes it will not help you. It will hinder you. And so I want you to get to a point where you realize, you register, it's not helping me anymore. I just got to make a decision in here and move to the next question. Or you take that question and you put it at the end of your test. You skip it. Go through all the other questions. Then go back if you have time. Spend that extra time if you need to. Don't spend extra time during. Please. It's not worth it. Okay? Is everybody okay? I know that's kind of hard, but I want to make sure we see a good example and a bad example, because I know for those of us that search things, sometimes you're searching and you're getting nowhere sometimes. So I just wanted to show an example. You cut the losses sometimes and trust yourself a little bit, and you'll get there. So now, we're going to change gears. Okay? How do you perform a search for a specific word? What's the keyboard shortcut? Control F brings this up. On a PC, Command F on a Mac to pull up your keyword search. Okay? Moving forward. No worries. Let's go to the next one. Let's change topics. Okay? And we're going to go through the certain provincial in a little bit still. But we're going to talk about this next for the next 20 minutes or so. Okay? I want to have a serious conversation with everyone about test anxiety. Okay? Now, I know that some of us have it, some of us don't have it, but I would say most of us have it to some degree. Would you agree with me that you probably get a little nervous, a little scared, something on your way to tests? Perfect. Here's the concept of anxiety that gives me weird feelings, okay? I find a lot of the time the word anxiety gets brought up when you're scared of something, nervous about something, or stressed about something. I'm anxious about that. But when we use the word anxiety, a lot of times that's I can't change that conversation. I'm anxious about it. I can't change that. I can't do anything about it. Okay? And we're kind of taught to be anxious or scared or worried or stressed about tests. Why? I don't know why, but we just were when we went through school, weren't we? Did you study for the test, Eric? Yeah, I studied. Are you cramming for the test last night? No, I took the night off. Are you crazy? This is like blank % of our mark. Do you not take this serious? And we almost get groomed to be anxious about our tests, to be a little bit worried, to be scared, to worry about failing. And I want to change the wording that we're using. I don't want you to think you're test anxious, because a lot of times anxious we can't change. I get stressed about taking tests. I get worried about my mark and worried about failing. And I get scared of failing. Can we say that those are what shows up? I get stressed about taking the exam, I'm worried about the result, and I'm a little scared to fail. Can we agree that that's probably what we're thinking as we're going through? Yeah. So let's use those words going forward, and let's tackle how we feel. The reason why I like using those words is I can handle stress I can deal with my worries and I can face my fears. So that means that you can get through it and still do it. Okay? It's not the anxiety keeping you. You need to face your fears to take the test. You got to handle the stress that you're going to go through to take your test, and you got to be okay with knowing that you're worrying, right? But let's get into a couple strategies as we go through. Okay? The first thing I want you to do is I want you to prepare to be anxious. You know it's coming. Understand it's coming. Okay? Here's a couple tips that me doing some research on anxiety or test anxiety in general that I saw. You got to fuel up. That means eat something. Okay? Your blood sugar levels determine how your stress levels are. How many of us in the room get a little hangry sometimes? Both hands for me. Woo, when I'm hungry, I'm not the same person sometimes, right? So if you're hungry and you're taking a test, guess what? You're not the same person that would write that test full, or at least with some food in you. And especially for those of us that, some people are diabetic, some people are hypoglycemic, whatever you want to call it, that matters even more to you, right? So make sure that you eat something a little while before, or have a drink that's maybe got a little bit of sugar in it to keep you flat the whole test. Because if you start peaking or dipping, okay, that's you peaking and dipping in your stress, anxiety, worry, okay? You need to get some sleep. And that does, now I know some people say, Eric, if I'm going to take a test tomorrow, I'm not getting much sleep. I get a little stressed about it. I get that. But for anyone who has kids or anything like that, or family members, you can bank sleep, can't you? You can get a couple hours of sleep extra yesterday or tomorrow to make sure you're good for the next day. So just do your best to get some sleep. Get there early. I had this put in here for when people go to an office to take the test, or when you're in a provincial, you're doing it in person. But here's what I want you to think. Set yourself up early so you have it ready before you take your test. Set it up. Have it ready. Then go take your 5-minute relaxation before you take your test, and then come back and you take the test. If you're getting stressed about the technology, set it up first. It's okay. But I want you to be able to take a breath. And then remain positive. Now, this does not mean stay positive. Sometimes I hear, don't be negative, be positive, which you should be more positive than negative most of the time. But remain positive means don't let question 2 that was hard phase you for the rest of the test. Just because you had to guess on that hard question doesn't mean that you don't know what you're talking about. You can still do fine on the rest of the test. And for any of you that were here yesterday during the life insurance mock, I did 15 of the questions with the group. I guessed A on every other question, and we still got 70% on it. I focused on the answers I could get right, and I left the answers I couldn't get right easily, and I still did okay, because guessing isn't bad, but make sure you take an educated guess between the 2 best answers. I just guessed blindly, and we did okay, but don't do that. Make sure you at least go through the question and answer the 2 best ones if you can. But go focus on the ones you can get right, because we need what mark to pass? 60. We don't need 100. And then if you're having anxiety, if you're feeling that stress, you're feeling that worry, you're getting to that 8 or 9, you just got to take a breath. And you calm yourself down. Even if you take that from a 9 to a 7. I had literally this conversation last night, everybody. Someone came to me in person because I was at my office. They said, Eric, I get so stressed during my exams. I just can't do it. I'm on my last test, my 4th try. I don't know if I can do it. And I just said, she's like, I got stuff going on in my life. I got this going on. And I was just like, hey, you just need to take a breath in the test. Even if you're taking it from a 10 to a 7, guess what? You're taking it from a 10 to a 7, and you're thinking way more clearly at a 7 than you are at a 9 and 10. And I got a text today at 1 p.m. today saying, thanks, Eric, for the tip. I passed my exam today. That felt pretty good. But I'm just telling you, these work. You just need to do it. Let's keep going. Here's a couple things I want to have a conversation with. Where can we take the test for provincial? If you're not at the point where you're taking your provincials, I would say don't worry about that yet. And it depends what province you're in. So I can't tell you exactly specifically for you. Please understand that when you get anxious, scared, stressed, worried, your blood pressure goes up, your heart beats faster, and you feel a little jittery when you get that way. When you take caffeine, that does the exact same thing in the body. So if you know you're going to get anxious, I would recommend you maybe scale the caffeine back a little. If I know one thing about people getting anxious, worried, stressed during the test, is that doesn't put them to sleep. Right? If you get anxious, scared, and stressed after going to a haunted house, you don't sleep. So that means you probably don't need as much caffeine because you're basically adding fuel to the fire of that. Not something that maybe I knew, but I figured it out in there. If you get a higher mark on your mock test, you're going to feel more competent. Therefore, you're going to feel more confident to take that test. I talk to people that I got 60 on my mock, so I went and I took my cert and I got 55. Well, yeah, because the test is going to feel harder because you're more stressed, worried, scared about the result. So your mark's going to go down a little bit. If you get that 70, 75 on your mock, you're going to feel way more confident that I can still do 10%-ish worse and I'll still pass. And that's okay. But let's say you don't pass. Eric, I didn't pass. I got 56%. Now what do I do? Raise your standard. Now do 75 or 80 in your mock. Then go back. And you got 5% extra buffer, which means you're going to take that 56 to a 60. Keep that buffer. If you know you're going to go down by 10, 15%, make sure your buffer is maybe 15 to 20%. Make sure it's all within your control. You're going to get curveballs during that test, guys. Don't expect to get 100%. Like I said, you only need a 60 to pass. Guys, 18 out of 30 is all you need on some of those 30 question tests. You don't need 30 out of 30. Anyone played sports in here? Yeah, I played soccer when I was growing up. If there's two things about a soccer game that I was focused on, one, don't get scored on, two, score goals. Now, or baseball, it doesn't matter how many points the other team gets as long as you have one more point than that, isn't it? To win the game. So if you treat it a little bit like a game, you just got to get 18 of those 30 questions right to pass. That's it. You can get 12 wrong and still pass. Now, let's not aim to get 12 wrong, right? Let's aim to get like 10-ish or less wrong, but still, you don't have to get every single answer right. Go focus on the 18 you can go get right, not on the 12 you could get wrong. Because that 18 is going to make you pass. The 12 is not. Okay? I get this. Eric, it was that one question about blah, 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 blah. No, it wasn't. It was the fact that that one question changed how you took the rest of your test. That's why that one question mattered. And if you took that question and you put it at the end of your test, guess what? You wouldn't even focus on that question till the end of your test, and you would have passed your test. The feedback I get is, Eric, question 2 is just so hard. I wish I would have got that question right. And I kind of smile, and I think question 2 should have been question 30 for you. Because you would have thought clearly for the other 28 questions in there. And then you would have done question 30, guessed on it because it was hard, and you might have guessed on it anyway. But you wouldn't be bringing up question 2. You would have told me you passed. And question 2 would have meant nothing. Now, I'm going to explain one thing to the group before I get into showing you what the certification looks like. I'm a normal person just like everybody else in here. I have worries. I have stresses. I have fears. I have anxieties. And there's one anxiety that is higher than everything else in my life. And I'll tell you what it is. Public speaking. And what have I been doing for all of these classes? Public speaking. Now, I'll tell you, I'm going to look on my Apple Watch. My resting heart rate is 56, and my current heart rate is 104. So let me paint you what I'm saying to you. Eric, are you saying that you're nervous, scared, stressed the entire time you're teaching tonight? Yes. A little bit. Now, it doesn't get easier in a way. I don't get any less nervous before I enter, but I get better. Let me put it this way. Was anyone on here a little bit early and you heard all the music that was playing with the poster and all that stuff? Was anyone here with me during that? Hey, I put the music on for me, not for you. The music's for me. It's not for you. It's to calm me down. It's to get me in the zone, and it's so I can make sure to give you the best thing I can. So here's what I'm trying to tell you. If you got to take some steps to make sure that you put yourself in the right mindset before you take your test, go do it. It'll make you do better. And it doesn't necessarily get that much easier per se, but you get better every time you do it. So you might not be where you want to be in your nervousness, stress, anxiety, worry, all that stuff now, but you just get better by doing it. So you got to go do it. You might be worried about taking that test. Good. That means you're taking it serious, but you still got to go do it. You might be scared about failing. That's fine. Guess what? Sometimes we fail before we succeed. Not every child learns how to walk by standing up the first time. And by the way, none of them do. Right? My niece is learning how to ride a bike. She falls off her bike. Guess what? She's a ha-ha, and then she just gets on her bike and keeps going. At what point did you let a failure turn into more than what it is? A stepping stone to doing it. I say this all the time. Hey, I don't care how much you know when you show up to my classes. I just want you to know more when you leave. It's not a failure if you wrote in some things in the search bar that I showed you and it was not the right thing. That's okay. It's about knowing what to do after this. And I'm just trying to yell at you to the part of you that you don't give time very often. I know all of you, in a way. I know that you've been through something way harder in your life than 4 exams. And you're still here, optimistic that you can make your life better. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So I want you to give that part of you some license to talk every once in a while. Don't let the one that I can't, I don't, we can't, all these words, I don't want to hear that today. I want you to give the I can do it, I want to do it, I might not be doing it the first time, but I can handle this, I can handle my stresses, I can deal with my worries, and I can face my fears. That's the part of you that needs a little bit of license today. And after this, I'm not yelling at you to make you feel bad today. I'm yelling at you so you give that part of you a little bit of license. A little bit of speech today. Is this making sense? Are we all okay? Yes, I'm nervous and scared and a little bit worried as we go through this. But guess what? I'm doing it anyway. Why? Because I get better every single time. And so can you. So let's talk about the cert since everyone's asking questions about the cert. Okay, I got fired up. I'm back. Okay, this is what the certification looks like. If for anyone who has not seen it, this is what it looks like. And we're going to blow through this because we got 13-ish minutes left. Okay? This is what the cert looks like. The exam. This is a 40-question cert. This is not the same one you take, but this is what it looks like. You are monitored during these exams. That means your webcam needs to work. Your microphone in your webcam needs to work. Okay? During these exams. You will not be able to split screen like I did in the practice exams. It is all one screen, and we switch tabs like our browsers. We click textbook tab, and it goes to this. The textbook. Now, one thing I want to mention, if you do not click this little eyeglass here, you will not have this search bar. It is not there by default. So when you click on the textbook, you are not going to see the text box. You have to click on that little icon to get it. And then it pops up. Here's a tip for this, though. Do not use any of these options that are listed. Highlight all will show you all of them, which is confusing. Matching case means you have to get the capitalization right for it to show it, otherwise it won't show it at all. And whole words means that it'll put the word if it's only that word by itself. Some of you might say, well, some of you might say, hey, well, the whole word could be good if I'm looking for DI, let's say, disability insurance. I'm looking for DI, Eric. I need the whole word DI because it shows every word that has D and I beside itself. Here's a good searching tip for everybody. Put a space before and a space after, and you will find just that word by itself. I would much more recommend that. Put a space before DI, put a space after DI, and you will find just DI by itself. Because if you accidentally keep that whole words option in there and you type bankrupt when it's looking for bankruptcy, you miss it. That's why I also type them in slower. Because you saw if I typed in the right thing, it took me right where I needed to go, putting in 3 or 4 or 5, 6 letters, not the whole thing. Okay? Does everybody get what I'm saying? You have to click the eyeglass to get the textbook. To get the search bar for the textbook. Okay, good. Now, some of us might be saying, Eric, there's a calculator tab there. Let's talk about the calculator tab. This is what it looks like. It's a simple calculator, which means you need to do simple calculations on it. And as we go through the next couple days and the next couple weeks, I hope all of you understand that I'm going to teach you simple math to put in a simple calculator, not a complicated math to put in a simple calculator, because that's really hard. Typing in the right things at the right time in the calculator can matter. And the more complicated the formulas get, the harder it is to put that in the right order. So I'm going to make things simple as we go through this. Okay? I like to keep things simple rather than complicated, because simplicity can be understood. Complexity is harder to get. Okay? Everybody okay? Now let's talk about how many cert tries, provincial tries, all that stuff. Let's just make it straight up. You have 3 tries per module in your certifications. So you have 3 tries in acts and sickness, 3 tries in ethics, 3 tries in segs, 3 tries in life. Okay, that come with the course. If you need a 4th try on any certification, you will have to pay for that. Okay, now here, let me make this clear. It's okay to not pass your first cert attempt. Just like any time to fail. It's not bad if you fail. It's okay to not pass your second time sometimes, but I would say that you should take that one a little bit more serious. The 3rd one you should be taking very serious. And if you don't pass the 4th certification attempt in any module, you have to redo the entire course. So you could pass ethics, you could pass A&S, you could pass segs. And then you fail the 4th life insurance module, you have to do the the certification exams for the entire course over again and pay for it again. So what I'm trying to say is it's okay to not pass your first cert. That's fine. It's okay to not pass your second one. It's kind of not okay to not pass your 3rd, and it's really not okay to fail your 4th. And so I'm not saying that Randy, who said he failed the A&S 3 times, should be panicking. No, no, no. He just needs to make sure that he's going to pass that 4th attempt. For sure. So we just take it a little bit more serious as we go. Right? That doesn't mean we beat up on ourselves more. No, no, no. Take it serious. Study more. Take more tests. Take chapter quizzes. Work our way through. Is everybody understanding where I'm coming from? Okay, good.